The algorithm of family holidays. Don't forget to mention your promotion, my mom texted for the 5th time that morning. I stared at my phone and sighed. The annual Thompson Family 4th of July weekend was approaching with the subtlety of a freight train, and my mother was already stage managing my performance. Let me tell you about the Thompsons. My name is Zoe Parker, née Thompson, 32-year-old tech product manager living in Austin with my husband Ryan and our rescue pit bull, Gigabyte. I escaped the Thompson gravitational pull 6 years ago when I moved from Connecticut to Texas for a job at a promising startup. My parents still haven't forgiven me for choosing breakfast tacos over their Sunday brunches. The Thompson family isn't wealthy or famous. We don't have a dynasty or legacy. What we do have is my mother, Diane Thompson, organizational wizard and Olympic-level guilt tripper, who rules the family calendar with an iron Google Doc. Every single holiday, every birthday, every milestone, all of them planned, scheduled, and mandatory. Attendance is non-negotiable. The specifics are predetermined. And God help you if you suggest an alternative. You know, Ryan said, watching me glare at my phone, normal families just text Happy 4th, and maybe share a beer. We're not normal, I muttered. We're Thompsons. My husband snorted. That should be on a warning label. Ryan wasn't wrong. In the 3 years we'd been married, he'd witnessed the Thompson Holiday Algorithm in action enough times to understand the pattern. First came the initial announcement, we're having Easter at Mom and Dad's, followed by the detailed instructions, arrive by 11 a.m. sharp, bring the gluten-free cookies from that bakery Mom likes, then the guilt-laden follow-ups, your brother is flying in from Seattle, surely you can drive from Austin, and finally the passive-aggressive countdown, only 3 more days until we're all together as a family. The capital letters were always included. Mom believed in typographical emphasis. We could just not go, Ryan suggested, not for the first time. Tell them you have COVID. Or monkeypox. Or monkey poveditis. That's not a thing. They don't know that. I laughed despite myself. You know we can't bail. Not on the 4th of July weekend. It's a Thompson tradition. Ryan raised an eyebrow. So is your mom criticizing your career choices, your dad asking when we're having kids, and your brother showing off whatever new tech gadget he bought to impress your parents? At least the food will be good. There is that, Ryan admitted. My mom was an exceptional cook, a talent she wielded like a culinary tractor beam to ensure her children never strayed too far. My phone pinged again. Your father wants to know if Ryan can help with the new Wi-Fi system. The Petersons next door changed their password again. I rolled my eyes. My dad, Alan Thompson, was a retired banking executive who still used AOL email and considered anything invented after 2010 to be suspicious alien technology. Ryan was his go-to tech support simply because my husband could successfully connect to Bluetooth on the first try. Tell him Ryan would be delighted, my husband said dryly. It's not like he has a vacation to enjoy or anything. I snorted and texted back, sure, Dad. Ryan says no problem. The ping came back instantly, great. Also remind Ryan to bring his tools. The Henderson's son can't set up their new TV and I volunteered him. Ryan looked over my shoulder at the text. The Hendersons? As in, people who aren't even related to us. Welcome to Thompson Holidays, where everyone in a 5-mile radius gets tech support. Ryan flopped dramatically onto the couch. Why do I feel like I'm about to spend my vacation as the neighborhood geek squad? Because you are, I said, patting his knee sympathetically. But hey, at least Mom will make your favorite apple pie. She's weaponized dessert, Ryan mumbled into a throw pillow. It's diabolical. He wasn't wrong. My mother's culinary skills were the sweetener that made the bitter pill of Thompson family gatherings palatable. Her kitchen was her domain, and she ruled it with the precision of a 5-star general. No one was allowed to help except in strictly supervised supporting roles. Suggestions were met with the Thompson death stare, a look so potent it could wilt lettuce at 20 paces. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my younger brother, Eric. Mom's in rare form this year. She's created a shared calendar for the weekend with color-coded activities. Red is mandatory, blue is strongly encouraged, yellow is free time, which isn't actually free because she'll guilt you if you don't participate. I groaned. What's got her so amped up? The neighbors. Apparently the Johnsons are doing a big party this year with a bouncy castle and professional fireworks. Mom's determined to show them up. Of course she is. My mother's rivalry with Susan Johnson had been simmering for 15 years, ever since Susan's garden won Best Spring Display in the Neighborhood Association contest, edging out my mom's prized hydrangeas by a single point. She's rented a chocolate fountain, Eric texted, and hired a guy to carve ice sculptures. I blinked at my phone. An ice sculptor? In July. And wait for it, she's ordered personalized Thompson Family Reunion t-shirts. Red, white, and blue with our faces printed on them. I nearly dropped my phone. Please tell me you're joking. Check your email. She sent a mock-up for approval. With mounting horror, I opened my inbox. There it was, a gaudy design featuring poorly photoshopped floating heads of every Thompson family member, including Ryan and Eric's girlfriend Mia, superimposed over an American flag background. Across the top, in what appeared to be Comic Sans, were the words, Thompson Family Fourth, United We Stand. Oh God, I whispered. Ryan peered over my shoulder and made a strangled noise. Are those? Our faces? Yes. Yes, they are. I look like I'm having a medical emergency. He wasn't wrong. The photo my mother had chosen made Ryan appear both constipated and mildly surprised, an expression I'd never actually seen on his face in real life. She expects us to wear these. In public. Ryan's face went through several emotions in rapid succession, landing on a mixture of horror and resignation. The apple pie better be extraordinary this year. I'll start packing, I sighed. And maybe some disguises for when we're wearing those shirts. The drive from Austin to my parents' house in Connecticut is approximately 1,800 miles. We split it over 3 days, which gave me plenty of time to receive approximately 4,000 text messages from my mother. Don't forget your great-aunt Martha will be there. She's still upset you didn't visit her in the nursing home last Christmas. I've seated you next to the Wilson's daughter at the barbecue. She's single and would love to meet Ryan's brother. Make sure you wear sunscreen. The Johnson's daughter got a terrible burn last year and her wedding photos were ruined. By the time we crossed into Connecticut, my eye was twitching sporadically and Ryan had developed a nervous habit of humming the Star-Spangled Banner under his breath. Maybe we should have a safe word, he suggested as we navigated the familiar streets of my hometown. Something to signal when one of us needs a break from your family. Like pineapple or escape hatch, or dear God help me. How about brisket? I suggested. As in, I need to check on the brisket, or did you remember to bring the brisket recipe? Perfect. If I say anything about brisket, it means I'm having an existential crisis and need you to create a diversion so I can hide in the bathroom. Deal. We pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly 3:58 p.m. I knew without checking that my mother would have noted our arrival time and mentally compared it to her requested 4 p.m. target. The 2-minute early arrival would earn us a small nod of approval, the Thompson equivalent of a standing ovation. The front door flew open before we could even get out of the car. You're here, my mother called, waving frantically as if we might miss the 2-story colonial we just parked in front of. She was already wearing a red, white, and blue apron with sequined stars across the chest. Ryan looked at me. Too late to run? Way too late. She's locked onto our position. We plastered on smiles and climbed out of the car. Oh, let me look at you too. My mother engulfed me in a perfumed hug, then held me at arm's length for inspection. Zoe, honey, you look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? And you've lost weight. Are you eating? Ryan, is she eating? I force-feed her hourly, Mrs. Thompson, Ryan said with a straight face. Sometimes she tries to escape, but I track her with one of those Apple AirTags. My mother missed the sarcasm entirely. Good. And Ryan, you're looking. She trailed off, clearly trying to find something complimentary to say about my husband's quarantine beard and the University of Texas t-shirt he'd worn specifically to annoy her. Texan, he supplied helpfully. Well, she sniffed, we'll fix that right up. The shirts are here. One for everybody. Wonderful, I managed weakly. Can't wait. My father appeared in the doorway, mercifully redirecting my mother's attention. Are you going to keep them standing in the driveway all day, Diane? Let the kids come inside. Dad gave me a bear hug and shook Ryan's hand. Good to see you, son. I've got a list of tech problems that need your expertise. Ryan shot me a look that clearly said brisket, but aloud he said, happy to help, sir. Inside, the house had been transformed into what can only be described as a patriotic explosion. Red, white, and blue streamers hung from every possible surface. Star-shaped confetti littered the tables. A life-sized cardboard cutout of Uncle Sam stood in the corner, bearing an unnerving resemblance to my father. Do you like it? My mother gestured around proudly. I've been decorating all week. Just wait until you see the backyard. The ice sculptor comes tomorrow morning, and the chocolate fountain arrives at noon. It's something, I managed. Oh, and look what else came today. She hurried to the dining room table and proudly held up what appeared to be a custom-made Thompson family flag. It featured the same floating heads as the t-shirts, but now they orbited around a stylized letter T like planets around a sun. Ryan made a noise that might have been a laugh or a sob. We're going to hang it from the flagpole, my mother announced. The Johnsons will see it from their backyard. Mom, I said carefully, don't you think that's a bit much? Her face fell immediately. You don't like it? No, it's not that, I backpedaled quickly. It's just very prominent. That's the point, Zoe, she sniffed. Family pride. Thompson unity. Susan Johnson has been bragging about her party for months, and I won't have our family overshadowed. My father appeared with 2 beers, handing one to Ryan with a conspiratorial wink. Best to just go with it, son, he whispered, not quite quietly enough. 25 years of marriage has taught me when to pick my battles. My mother pretended not to hear him. Now, you two go get settled. Eric and Mia should be here any minute, and your aunt and uncle are arriving at 6. Dinner is at 7 sharp. As we lugged our bags upstairs to my childhood bedroom, now the blue guest room, though still decorated with my high school swimming trophies, Ryan leaned in close. I've calculated the caloric value of all the expected pies and desserts, he whispered. It almost makes this worthwhile. I laughed and kissed him. 3 days. We can survive anything for 3 days. Those words would soon come back to haunt me. By the time Eric and Mia arrived, Ryan had already fixed my parents' Wi-Fi, reset my mother's iPad, no mom, Apple didn't move your photos. They're in the cloud. And been dragged next door to help the Hendersons mount their new 85-inch TV. You abandoned me, he accused when he finally returned, finding me comfortably ensconced on the porch with a glass of wine and my brother. Tactical retreat, I corrected. I was being efficient. Now Mom has cornered Mia to interrogate her about her reproductive plans, which means she's not focused on us. Eric snorted. Mia's prepared. She's got charts and graphs about how her career as an environmental scientist requires at least 3 more years before considering children. Mom loves charts, I agreed. Smart woman, your girlfriend. Speaking of Mom's fixations, Eric said, lowering his voice, have you seen the schedule? I groaned. The color-coded one? Yeah. No, the new one. She's printed individual itineraries for everyone. They're in the welcome bags in our rooms. The what now? Eric pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. On his bed was a red, white, and blue gift bag stuffed with tissue paper, from which protruded what appeared to be a bound booklet. Oh God, I muttered. It gets better, Eric said grimly. The welcome bags include customized water bottles with our faces on them, a tin of Thompson Family Fourth cookies, and, I swear I'm not making this up, temporary tattoos of the family crest. Ryan choked on his beer. You have a family crest? We do now, Eric said. Mom had it designed online. It's got an eagle, 2 tennis rackets, and what I think is supposed to be Dad's old Volvo. I buried my face in my hands. She's lost her mind. The neighbors, Eric and I said in unison. Ryan looked between us. I don't get it. Why is your mom so obsessed with impressing these Johnson people? Eric and I exchanged glances. You want to tell it, or should I? I asked. You're the storyteller, Eric said, gesturing with his beer. I settled back in my chair. 15 years ago, the Johnsons moved in next door. Susan Johnson seemed nice enough at first. She brought over a lasagna, joined the same book club as Mom, all the neighborly things. But then came the spring garden competition of 2009. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Sounds serious. It was like the Cold War but with fertilizer, Eric chimed in. Mom had won 3 years in a row with her hydrangea display. But Susan, I continued, planted this elaborate Japanese-inspired garden with a koi pond and imported cherry trees. It was impressive. Mom lost by 1 point, Eric added. The judge cited lack of originality in her feedback. Mom took it personally, I explained. Since then, it's been a constant competition. Susan's daughter got into Yale, so Eric had to apply to Harvard. Which I didn't get into, Eric noted. Susan's son became a doctor, so I was pushed toward medical school. Which you rebelled against by going into tech, Ryan said, understanding dawning. And now Susan's having a big 4th of July party. So Mom has to outdo her, I finished. With ice sculptures and chocolate fountains and apparently, family merchandise. Ryan drained his beer. I'm beginning to understand why you moved to Texas. If the wind shifts, you can actually see Susan's decorations from the upstairs bathroom window, Eric said. She's got a professional fireworks setup and a band. An actual band. Before Ryan could respond, the porch door slid open and my mother appeared. There you all are. Didn't you hear me calling? Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob are here, and dinner is in 20 minutes. And you haven't even looked at your welcome bags. We shuffled guiltily to our feet. As we filed inside, my mother handed each of us a glossy folder. Tonight's schedule, she explained. And don't forget, tomorrow's activities start at 7 a.m. sharp with the Thompson Family Fun Run. Ryan looked at me in horror. The what now? 3 miles around the neighborhood, my mother said cheerfully. We'll all be wearing our shirts. The Johnsons will be able to see us from their breakfast nook. As my mother bustled away, Ryan leaned in close to my ear. Seriously considering brisket right now. Major brisket emergency. Hold it together, I whispered back. Pie is coming. Dinner was exactly what I expected, chaos barely contained by my mother's iron will and laminated place cards. Aunt Linda interrogated me about my lack of children. Tick-tock, Zoe. Uncle Bob cornered Ryan with conspiracy theories about 5G networks, and my cousin's 3-year-old twins turned mashed potatoes into a topographical map of Connecticut across the dining room floor. Through it all, my mother maintained a manic smile, refilling wine glasses and steering conversations away from anything remotely controversial or interesting. Her eye twitched only once, when Uncle Bob mentioned he might have to miss the fun run due to his trick knee. But we need everyone, she said, her voice tight. For the group photo. We're all wearing the shirts. I'm sure no one will notice if Uncle Bob sits out, I attempted. My mother's head swiveled toward me like something from a horror movie. Everyone will participate. Each word was its own sentence, punctuated with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Under the table, Ryan squeezed my knee in sympathy. After dinner came the enforced family game night, another Thompson tradition that inevitably devolved into competitive chaos. My father, normally the picture of banking propriety, transformed into a monopoly shark who showed no mercy, not even to the twins. Eric, a lifelong board game enthusiast, approached Scrabble with the strategic intensity of a chess grandmaster. And my mother, well, my mother kept score. Of everything. By 11 p.m., when we finally escaped to our room, I was exhausted. I can't believe we still have 2 more days, I groaned, face-planting onto the twin bed of my youth. I'm already socially depleted. Ryan was examining the welcome bag with morbid fascination. These temporary tattoos are something else. Your face looks like it's melting on this one. Please don't remind me, I mumbled into the pillow. And the itinerary. He whistled. There's literally a 15-minute window scheduled tomorrow called Personal Freedom Time. She put our freedom on a schedule. That's generous. Usually it's just implied that any moment not specifically programmed is available for her to assign spontaneous tasks. Like helping neighbors with their electronics? Exactly like that. Ryan sat beside me, rubbing my back sympathetically. We could make a break for it. The window's not that high. I could fashion a rope from these patriotic hand towels. I laughed despite myself. Tempting, but she'd just hunt us down. Mom's gotta find my family app, I'm convinced of it. So what's the survival strategy? I rolled over, looking up at my husband's concerned face. We stick to the schedule, smile for the photos, and drink heavily when she's not looking. Sound plan. He leaned down to kiss me. Also, I love you, but if you think I'm running 3 miles tomorrow morning in a shirt with my own face on it, you've seriously misjudged our relationship. I grinned. What if I told you there's an apple pie with your name on it, if you do? I'd say your mother has taught you well, young Padawan. The Thompson family fun run was, predictably, neither fun nor technically a run. It was more of a grim march through suburban streets, 8 adults and 2 children wearing matching shirts that made us look like a cult devoted to patriotic floating heads. My mother jogged at the front, periodically stopping to arrange us into more photogenic formations whenever we passed the Johnsons' house. My father trudged along at the back with Uncle Bob, both men looking like they were reenacting the Bataan Death March. The twins alternated between sprinting manically ahead and refusing to move at all, requiring their parents to fireman carry them while still maintaining, as my mother insisted, a fun energy. Ryan, bless him, stuck by my side, occasionally muttering brisket under his breath but otherwise maintaining remarkable composure for someone whose face was emblazoned across his chest. Is it over yet? He gasped as we rounded what felt like the 50th corner. Almost, I promised. Just one more pass by the Johnsons. I think I saw their curtains move, Eric said, jogging up beside us. Susan's definitely watching. Good. My mother called back. Everyone smile. Thompson family spirit. Wave those flags. Oh yes, she distributed miniature versions of the Thompson family flag for us to wave as we ran. Mine was already limp with sweat. As we made our final approach past the Johnsons' house, disaster struck. One of the twins, overtired and overstimulated, broke free from my cousin's grip and made a beeline directly for the Johnsons' meticulously maintained front yard, specifically, toward their elaborate garden gnome display. Charlie, no! My cousin shrieked, but it was too late. In what felt like slow motion, little Charlie Thompson, age 3 and full of sugary patriotic breakfast cereal, executed a perfect diving tackle into a formation of garden gnomes. The resulting ceramic carnage was immediate and catastrophic. Gnome heads rolled. Tiny pointed hats scattered across the lawn. The centerpiece, a 3-foot-tall gnome king on a mushroom throne, toppled majestically backward into Susan Johnson's prized rosebushes. Silence fell over the Thompson family fun run. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Then, like a scene from a neighborhood nightmare, Susan Johnson herself emerged from her front door. She was already dressed for her own party in a tasteful blue sundress, her silver blonde hair perfectly coiffed. She surveyed the damage, then looked up at our frozen family tableau, sweaty, panting, dressed in matching shirts with our own faces on them, standing in a guilty semicircle at the edge of her property. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother stepped forward, clutching her Thompson family flag like a shield. Susan, she said with forced brightness. Happy 4th. We're just out for our annual family run. Susan's gaze swept over us, lingering on the matching shirts, the fallen gnomes, and finally settling on my mother's increasingly desperate smile. Diane, she said coolly. How enthusiastic. The tension was unbearable. Charlie, oblivious to the diplomatic crisis he'd created, was happily playing with a detached gnome head. Then something unexpected happened. Ryan, my husband, the outsider, the tech guy who had been dragged across the country to participate in Thompson family insanity, stepped forward. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Ryan Parker, Zoe's husband. I've heard so much about you." Susan blinked, momentarily taken aback by his normalcy amid the chaos. "What a lovely gnome collection," Ryan continued smoothly. "I'm so sorry about the accident. Please let us replace any damaged pieces, and perhaps you'd allow me to set up your new outdoor sound system? Diane mentioned you have a band coming for your party. I'm happy to make sure everything's perfect." Susan's expression shifted from frosty to interested. "You know about sound systems?" "I do," Ryan said modestly. "And lighting. And I noticed your security cameras look a bit misaligned. I could fix those too." Susan thawed visibly. "Well, that would be very helpful. My husband's been struggling with the setup all week." My mother's mouth hung open. The flag in her hand drooped. "Perhaps," Susan continued, warming to Ryan, "you'd all like to join our party tomorrow? Since we're neighbors after all." And just like that, 15 years of suburban Cold War ended because my husband offered free tech support. The rest of the weekend unfolded in ways I never could have predicted. The ice sculptor arrived, but since we were now attending the Johnsons' party, my mother redirected him to create a joint Thompson-Johnson centerpiece for the combined celebration. The chocolate fountain became a shared resource. The matching shirts were diplomatically forgotten in favor of more subtle patriotic attire. Most shockingly, my mother and Susan Johnson were spotted sharing a glass of sangria and exchanging recipes by the pool. "I don't understand what just happened," I confessed to Ryan as we watched the two former nemeses laughing together. 15 years of rivalry ended in a day. Ryan shrugged. "Sometimes people just need a bridge. And sometimes that bridge is a guy who knows how to set up a Sonos system." I leaned against him, feeling something I hadn't expected to feel during this trip, relaxed. "You know what this means, right? You're the official Thompson family diplomat now. Mom's going to drag you to every neighborhood function from now until forever." "I figured," he said, kissing the top of my head. "But I negotiated terms." "You what now?" "Susan's husband works for an Austin-based company," Ryan said casually. "They have an office in Hartford. And he mentioned they're looking for someone with my skills." I pulled back to look at his face. "Wait. Are you saying?" "I'm saying we could visit more often. If you wanted. Get a small place nearby, split our time. Your mom would see more of us, but on our terms." "But you hate Connecticut. You hate the cold." "I don't hate it," he corrected. "I just prefer breakfast tacos. But I love you, and they're your family, and maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing to have a foot in both worlds." I stared at him. "Who are you and what have you done with my husband?" He laughed. "Don't worry, I'm still me. I negotiated pie rights in perpetuity and a strict no more face shirts clause." My mother agreed to that? Let's just say Susan's influence has been moderating. Across the yard, my mother was showing Susan how to properly fold a napkin into a star shape. Susan was nodding appreciatively. Their respective husbands stood nearby, beers in hand, seemingly relieved that they were no longer foot soldiers in a suburban conflict. "So," Ryan said, "what do you think? Austin and Connecticut? Best of both worlds." I looked around at my family, ridiculous, controlling, loving, impossible, and then at my husband, who had somehow found a way to bridge the gap between the person I was and the person I'd become. "I think," I said slowly, "that sounds like a holiday algorithm I could live with." He grinned and clinked his beer against mine. "Happy 4th, Mrs. Parker." "Happy 4th, Mr. Parker. And thank you for not saying brisket and running away." "Oh, the emergency's not over," he warned. "Your mother just pulled out sparklers and a karaoke machine. But we'll face it together. That's what family does." And for once, I didn't mind being a Thompson. Or rather, a Thompson Parker. It turned out all we needed was a little recalibration of the algorithm. The end.